Hey guys, Teresa here with Sippie Couture. We're jumping straight in with this beach swirl tumbler. What I did is I spray painted my cup white already. It is prepped, I sanded it, and I spray painted it white. That way the colors that I'm putting on will have a bit more of a pop. We're gonna start with just laying this gold so that we know where that, beachy sand needs to be, because it is gonna have the footprints going across it. So we have that down, and then we're gonna flip it the other way and we're gonna go in with our navy. From here, I just build my colors around the cup. And I'm following that same angle. And then we'll go in with an ink blue. Some of these spray paints are dying. So I'm on the last of it for these. I'm gonna go around, make sure we get under the handle and across it. And then we have this Oasis blue. These are all Rust-Oleum 2 times thick spray paints. And we're gonna bring in this color. Kind of just lining our gold with it. And like I said, I like to do this that way my colors have a lot more pop. All right, then some of that kind of royal blue color got covered up, so I'm going to add in a little more. Make sure that navy's dark. The further you hold your spray paint can away from the cup, the more of a blend you'll get with the colors. I'm going to go over with that ink blue one more time to make sure that's softened up enough. And let's see if I have enough gold or if I have to go get another can. Ooh, there's enough. I feel like I just made it. All right, I'm going to tilt it this way and see, because I do like to have my sand go to the sides and wrap around the bottom. All right, so this is going to make ombreing a lot easier because you'll kind of see where those colors need to lay. And it also gives a bit of, how do you say that? Like it's a little forgiving. It's a little forgiving when some of those glitters are light. If your paint is already on the back, it will it'll help make that blend and look like a more seamless ombre. All right, so now I'm just messing with it till I get it how I like it. Okay, and that's about it. I can see the navy on both sides. I can see that teal on both sides. I'm gonna make sure my gold is super bright right there. And that's all we're going to do for the spray paint. So we have that. All the insides are done-ish. Whoop. Okay. There's my navy again. Make sure that's super dark in there. All right, there we go. Now we're done the spray paint. We're gonna let this dry all the way and then we'll go in with our glitters. So we're going on with our epoxy. Again, I'm using speed dry. I just love this stuff. I use this epoxy for every single step of this beach tumbler. The only thing with that is that if you like to take your time, then use a different epoxy if you don't want it to set up so quick. But for me, I put colors, I intentionally put colors in different places for this, and I don't want those lines to move around a ton once I set them down. And using speed dry helps me get them in place and have them set where then I can add heat and they'll move just a tad, like they won't really want to do much, and I love that. And then usually when we're doing epoxy, we don't like to put a lot. You don't want to have big streaks in it, but with all the glitters I'm using, I do like this part to be a little heavier. That way it will hold every color that I'm putting down, a lot of every color that I'm putting down, I should say. I'm going to hit this with the heat gun and make sure I have every part of this coated. And I'm just dragging this epoxy down with my finger. At this point, we're not worried about we're not worried about bubbles. It's okay to have, we're gonna be dropping the glitters on anyway, so you won't be able to see that. What I would worry about though, is if you get any of those big streaks in your epoxy where you can see where you smoothed it out. And I feel like I show this on any video, but just in case it's someone's first time, I will show it again. So if you've seen me do this, you're gonna see me do it again. Make sure I get underneath. And I want to make sure every part of this handle and all these creases are covered. If you do your design and there's spots around your handle that you miss, like right in the crease, I've had a lot of luck with just taking, what is that? Part of my spray paint. The heat from the spray paint, the heat from the heat gun is moving some of that color around on me, but that's okay. What was I saying? I forgot. The streaks, I think that's what I was saying. Yep, right here. I think that's what it was. So anytime I put down epoxy, if there's any type of streaks in it, I want to make sure I get an even kind of consistent color. What I do is I pull my glove pretty tight so I don't have any wrinkles in my hand, and then I just press down throughout the cup. What that does is it creates usually smaller ripples whenever you have less epoxy, but it's creating ripples, and then those ripples will work themselves out. If you have a giant streak going along your epoxy like that, you'll see it. You'll see the glitter sink into that streak, and it won't be pretty. All right, so now we get the fun part. Guys, this is I have epoxy on my face and on my hand now. Goodness. I had it like right there from a different cup that I bumped into, and I think I just smeared it all over my face. Awesome. All right, this is going to be one of the easiest beach tumblers you can do. Like, the way that the colors are laid sideways, I feel like it gives a lot of forgiveness if you don't have a perfect ombre. Besides that, some of the colors that we're using, they just flow so nicely. I don't know, it helps cover it more. Like, it plays it off. And then whenever I'm doing any type of beach ombre, I don't just use a few colors. I use different shades of about 3 or 4 different colors. That way, and different size cuts. That way when it does ombre, it kind of flows better. You can let those colors drift, and that helps with the blending. All right, so I have my gold down because I want to know where my sand is going. So next I'm going to drop, all of these glitters or Mr. Nola's glitters. This is a custom gold mix that I put together. There was a few that I absolutely love of theirs, but I couldn't quite find the exact color I wanted. So this gives me a bit of like a few different cuts, and it has like a little iridescent, I guess, to it. But when you see it on certain angles, like that gold pops, it really pops. I like that. All right. So I'll part on the bottom I didn't do. Seriously, like the easiest ombre ever. I love this. I love this design. I'm going in first with NOPD since that is the darkest of the blues that I have. It's like a navy blue. And I'm gonna drop that fairly close to the cup along that inside line where we put that navy streak. And I'm not gonna try to rush. I'm not gonna chase my cup around. Let that fall and then go again. We want this navy to wrap around this side, so we're gonna go hard right there, and then we'll pull it up to help it drop to the other sides. That way it's easier to blend. So we're holding it up and we're going in. We'll put our leftovers back in here. And we're moving on to Royal. Royal will do the same thing. We're gonna line the sides of that navy that we just did. And it's almost dropping it still right on top of that, of NOPD. Royal is almost this navy blue color, but it has a completely different shade to it. It's more of a true navy blue, where NOPD is like a darker navy. almost like a midnight navy, I guess. All right, we'll go in with Stompers, and I'm bringing Stompers along that next line. I'm just easing it out a little. We wanted to get a good line going across where that blue ends, and then we're gonna pull our shaker up and fan it out more. And I gotta get inside that handle, but I wanna get these colors down on the outside first because that handle will be super easy to do. All right, and then as it turns, we're going to get some Stompers to go inside of that navy area. Not a lot, we just want a little of it to get there. And right here, we're gonna have to add more navy. I don't know if you can see that. At the top right there, what color do I want? I want royal right there. You can kind of see how that color's settling in. We're gonna go over that one more time to help that blend really come through. Right now, we're just kind of laying down a guide of where we want the colors to go. Okay. And next, we're going with Lakeview, and we're doing that same thing. We're gonna go right along the line we just did, somewhat close, and then we'll pull up on it. Give myself a good line right there, right along that edge. And then we'll fan it out, going back into the other colors. For this part, I feel like it helps if you drop the colors when they're kind of on the, how do I say this, like the downfall of the design. That way, they'll kind of ombre down the way you need it to. All right, Hermes is coming in next. And we're doing the same thing. We're gonna bring that even closer. I'm running out of this one. There's flakes in Hermes that are really transparent. So you wanna make sure that you leave that kind of towards some of the lighter colors or really blend it in with the other ones. All right, I'm gonna go Egret so that I know where I want my white to go before my other colors mash up too much. Egret's what I'm using for that white wave type part. I really like this glitter. It has these big chunks in there that are just so pretty. I'm gonna let Egret fall into the gold to help blend kind of that water look with the sand. And for this, I don't want to kind of bump my cup too much because some of those blues will fall off and I don't want to get my Egret all messy. So knock some off there. And then we're going to go back in with some of these colors again. We're going with NOPD. And this time we'll make sure we get underneath the handle. Sorry for the phone. Wait for that to come around. And then I didn't use Blue Bayou on the last round, but I'm gonna pull it in now. I'm gonna drop Blue Bayou somewhat over where Stompers went. Blue Bayou is a different cut of the different glitters we just used for the most part. So it's gonna do really good at filling in and bringing that blue into a bunch of different areas. So we're gonna let it kind of do whatever it wants for a few spots. All right, then we're gonna go in with Stompers again. I swear this is easy, guys. You're just dropping your glitters on that angle until you get them right where you want. I just like the way it looks when they kind of fall down. Make sure that came across right here. Make sure it's on my handle. And then I'm bringing in Lakeview just a little, because there's a few spots where Lakeview came out and did its own little travel-y thing right up in here, so I don't want it right there. But I definitely need to make sure I get up towards this water area. Make sure that stays bright. Make sure those edges have it, and then I'm going to get this handle done. All right, so right there, I'm gonna add some more Lakeview and Hermes that go along that bottom handle. So I'm gonna bring that in so that it ties in. And like, guys, this doesn't have to be perfect because this is getting layers of excitement. So I can do this with one hand. I think if I put this down right now, it's gonna hit off that glitter. Okay, so now I'm gonna take Hermes and I'm gonna fill in some of the pieces, some of the areas that, ooh, Lord, whoopsie, wrong side. Some of the parts I don't have it, sorry guys. Okay, I'm gonna put this on and I'm gonna grab my piece of parchment paper and see if we can lay it down. Like I said, I put down a good bit of epoxy. So the chance of this parchment paper getting stuck to that is fairly high. All right, I'm gonna let it turn and then I'm gonna stop it so that I'm not rolling this over the cup. I don't want my gold to get pressed into the other side. Oh good, that's not too bad. So I use this side for the gold right there to press it in. I'm gonna go with this back, press that down. Go around my handle. That way I don't have any pokey bits I'm gonna fight with later. I'll use the other side of it now. Okay, so I'm just tapping that down, making sure it's all where it needs to be. And now I'm just gonna look to see if any of that glitter moved or if I'm missing any spots, which I don't think I am. I mean, that's a pretty good coverage. Ooh, let's dump that. All right, on that handle was good. That's filled in. That gold, God, I love that gold. This gold has good coverage. I'm dropping this Hermes on it just so that it kind of looks like that water, like the blue of the water is traveling into the gold, if that makes sense. And then we're gonna let this spin for a bit, let it really get set on there. I don't wanna go mess with it yet. To spray paint it, because that's what I'll be doing. I'll be spray painting it with a clear, to seal it with a clear Rust-Oleum 2x clear gloss spray paint. That way when I go to epoxy, nothing shifts on me. So we're gonna give this probably about 2 or 3 hours. I'll come back and check it and see how we look and see if we're ready to hit it with that clear spray paint and move on. We're gonna get our layer of epoxy on here now. I did take it outside. I forgot to video of it. I'm sorry. I did take it outside and I coat it with a few quick bursts of Rust-Oleum 2x clear gloss spray paint, just to make sure all this glitter stays in place. And I probably should have used a little more epoxy. I was using what was left out of the cup from the other tumblers I just set, and it is not as much as I would like. Get the rest of this out of here. Oh, that will end up being enough. Never mind. You don't want this part to be a super heavy layer of epoxy, because we are going to have a few steps to this, a few layers on top of this tumbler, and we don't want it to be super bulky. But you do want to make sure that you have the glitter covered, because the next step is going to be applying power wash. Sorry, couldn't think of the name. We're going to hit it with some power wash to give some bubbles around that water's edge part, and you need to make sure that all of your glitter's covered, because if not, that spray paint is going to get into the cracks of that glitter and you will not be able to get that out. You will set yourself up for a big problem, like stripping your cup type level bad. So we're going to go through, make sure everything is covered. I mean, you can see how much heat I'm applying to this and it's not moving around, so that just goes to show, you know, how much that goes to show how my layers of spray paint are holding on. All right, I have a few other spots I want to really make sure. Under the handle, on all those edges. Wipe that through, get my torch. Whew. And just double check that there aren't any bubbles. I hardly ever have bubbles with this epoxy. It's the best thing ever. But I definitely want to make sure there's none trying to hide from me. That will make it look cloudy. Okay, let this set. We want to make sure this is cured before we do the spray paint, so this is going to sit for a while. Okay, so that one coat of epoxy ended up being enough. That's what I love about that stuff, is that even, I'm used to putting pretty heavy, well not heavy, but you know, fairly thick coats of epoxy on, even when I use that, and the time that I don't, I kind of get nervous that it won't be enough. But it was great. So I don't have any glitter. It's not completely smooth. I didn't sand it. You don't want to sand it at this point. If you sand it and then put spray paint on it, you're going to have spray paint go in the grooves of the sand of where you sanded it, and you'll never get that out of that sandpaper, and that would just be bad. So with this Dawn Power Wash, if you shake it, you'll get smaller bubbles by what I've kind of come across. So I don't shake it for this. I kind of want bigger bubbles. And you want to spray this stuff where you do not want the paint to settle. So I'm going a strip down there to look like kind of bubbles on the water, and then I'm going towards the outside because I want it to look washed up. Good. Put them all right there. Oh, the wind's starting. And I'm going to coat my phone. All right, so we have that, and then we'll just rinse it off. And then you're left with this super pretty, just kind of space of where the water is like washed up on there. We're gonna go through and clean up. We're gonna let this dry, and then we'll go through and clean up all the areas back here. Like, we'll follow the line, this natural path, and clean out any spray paint. Oh goodness, sorry guys. And we'll clean out any spray paint that we don't want. But like I said, like, this is a clean break, so we'll get rid of that stuff in the back and a little on the handle. So we'll show you that part next. Okay, so our spray paint has been sitting for probably like 5 minutes or so at the most. And nothing's coming off. It's amazing. I don't understand the science or the trick, but I mean, it's not coming off of my finger. So I don't know. It dries quick like that. Not completely dry, so don't go touching it, please. Don't do what I did. So we're gonna take our acetone and our baby wipe that I always like to use, and I'm gonna start off by cleaning the stuff that I know I don't want to keep. So anything far away from that line, I'm gonna wipe that off. I'm using acetone to get this first bit off, and then to really clean it up, to get the heavy bits off, and then to clean it just before I'm ready to start that next layer, then we'll use rubbing alcohol. That helps to kind of clean it up a little more, but without really taking the paint away. All right, so if you can see for right here, you see how there's a line that goes kind of zigzaggy, and then for right here, it drops down straight. I don't like that. If you like it, keep it. I don't like it, I'm not gonna keep it. So we're gonna wipe that away. And then we'll do the same thing to this side. There's a break. You can see this clear break right here. I need to get some of those, some skinnier sponges for these. Every once in a while I'll grab one that was cut for a different cup and it doesn't quite fit the way I want it and it gets a little wonky. All right, so I'm gonna take this. And again, we're gonna clean up inside there. So what I'm gonna do for this is, if you can see how it gets cloudy, like it isn't a clean bubble line, I'm gonna clean that up, but what I do is I kind of like to make it look like it still fell naturally. So whenever I get to a bubble, I'm gonna clean with my fingernail just along inside that bubble, and I'm gonna let it kind of take its own path in there. I'm not gonna wipe through a bubble that's kind of helped me. That way it looks a little more natural. So like, you see how they have this one right here? I'm gonna kind of, I don't know if I can do it from that angle. I'm gonna go in a little. That way it takes over that next bubble and has more of a natural pattern instead of the straight edges. And if you've ever seen any of my tutorial, I hate straight edges. I hate when something just, I don't know, if it's gonna be a clean cut, like split tumbler, I want it to look really clean. But if it's gonna, kind of flow, I get really difficult on myself with having it have that consistent flowy stuff. All right, so I don't know if you can see around that handle, but I'm wiping that so that it kind of does its own thing. I'm gonna leave some of the bubbles that are on top this handle. This is where, I don't know if some of those dried enough, maybe. This is where that rubbing alcohol will really be good for this, because I can take that, and if I go really light, I can get the spray paint that is inside of there wiped out without really taking away from anything. Okay, so, inside the handle. See how this is my first time doing this design in a handle. I think. I believe it is. All right, so I'm gonna clean up in there. This, remember guys, this is still gonna get waves and a motion over it, so it doesn't have to be completely perfect. We're just trying to do our best to clean it. All right, now I'm gonna get my rubbing alcohol, and I'm just going circular motion along the edges to pull any paint around, a way that might be in there. Let me go spin the other direction. So this will kind of clean up some of those outside bits without wiping away any spray paint that you might be wanting to keep. Like it'll soften in those edges. And it's also really good for cleaning up any small streaks of spray paint. The other thing you can do is how I showed you guys with the bubbles that kind of form right here and how I'll wipe it out to get patterns. If it goes too heavy in here, I'll do that same thing. Let me see if I can find one. I really like the way it came out, so I might not find one for you guys. I don't want to mess this up. It came out really good. Look, this part right here, I'll do this. Like if it's too muddy right there, I'll take it and I'll just let it flow inside that little bubble. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't want to touch this. I'll clean up to make sure there's no overspray between this, but this came out so good. I don't even want to mess with it. All right, so then let's see if I can show you guys how to do this handle. Make sure I'm grabbing my alcohol. Okay, so look, put a little on here, and if you just wipe lightly, you see how it's taking away the inside of that, but it's leaving those spots. I'm barely putting pressure on there. Like, it's just enough to almost like dusting it off with my finger, if that makes sense. And then from doing that every so often, you'll have a streak, especially if the paint is still wet, you'll have a streak of where it pulled. So just take your fingernail and just wiggle circles through it to kind of create, get those circles back the way you wanted it. So I'm gonna do one more check. I don't like the way under that handle came out, but let me clear it up a little. I don't love under that handle, but it's gonna have so many more colors on it, so we'll let it stay. And then really make sure there's no spray paint in this part, because I want this to be bright. Okay, that's it for this step. Blah. We are getting to the fun part. Well, it's all the fun part, so I guess I shouldn't say that. I have some epoxy mixed up already, and I'm gonna go ahead and give this a coat. That way my inks and micas that I'm doing this next step have something to flow around on. If you don't put this epoxy down first, they'll kind of just sit still in one place, and we definitely want them to move and flow a little. I'm still using speed dry because, like I said, I want it to move and flow a little. I intentionally put swirls and lines in certain places, and I do want them to flow. As much as I do want them to flow, I just want the detail that I lay down in a few spots to really stay in its place. And I forgot to change out my sponge, so I'm a little wobbly on this one. And get my heat gun to help move that around. All right, since this isn't completely level, since I forgot to change my sponge, I'm gonna make sure that when I put my epoxy towards the bottom, that there isn't a ton that I'm laying down there with some of these swirls, because I don't want it all to drift. Let me see if I can do this. There we go, that worked. Okay, so I have just a little bit of mica powder in a few of these cups already, and I'll get the colors listed out for you. I know that there's a lake blue, a blue. This one is a deep blue mixed with a regular blue, and I'll have to pull the other color. Give me a second. And you don't need a ton of this. Okay, so this one is lake blue. And all of these are from Mr. Nola Glitter. You know what, am I right? I'll have to look. I put too much. I put a little too much powder when I was coming off of one of them. But I have a lake blue, lake blue, royal blue, and then I have one that's a deep blue right here, mixed with just a regular. And I need to get a white. My lid got stuck to my hand just now. All right, we'll get this white in here. Mix it in real good. We're gonna lay this white first. And we're not doing a ton. We're just taking our popsicle stick and running it along. If you drop too much, you can just scoop it up and move it. So we just want a few soft waves right here. Definitely have to move quick with this epoxy. I have some of these waves going into the white, and then I'm going to pull them back into the blue. I don't want them to go completely on that white and go all the way into that gold, because I do want them to fade back, and I don't want to cover up those spots that I put. I'm also going to put a little under my handle, on and under the handle. Okay, now we're going to go with our deepest color and lay that over that dark part. And we're just kind of putting it on there super, super rough. I don't want too much on that part, just enough to kind of tie that in right there. All right, then I'm going to go with, this one looks darker. This must be the lake blue. And I'm going to take this one and I'm putting it kind of in between some of these, like towards that. I'm going to bring it a little through the white and then into that navy so it will pull. I want the navy and that color to mix through. And then we'll go on with this one. And kind of the same spot for that. I'm going to zigzag it so it will pull into that white. You can kind of see how they're starting to move together a little. You can also see how it's like rigid to where the epoxy is somewhat thick. I'm going to hit it with the heat gun to give it a little room to work. This will help it flow. And then we're going to go in with the inks. Not a ton of heat because that heat will help it set up, and we're not ready for that yet. So this is, I believe, Sailboat Blue. And I'm going to drop this one over that navy part. Like only within that navy part is where you're dropping it, and then you're just squiggling it around. I'll drop it sooner because I realized just now that it probably got away from me before you were able to see it. One of the little tricks is that if you go through and make little squiggly lines down at first, the epoxy won't, the alcohol ink won't want to run sideways because it will travel along, like you'll have those grooves to slide around in. I'm going to let it come around. And I'm going to extend it towards some of those lighter colors. This is a part that really adds just so much depth. Get a little drip in here. Okay, and now we're going to brighten that up. We're going to bring in this Mermaid color. And this we're going to let go in between that blue and the white. What we'll also do is we'll drag it into the white and mix it in with some of the white we laid just at the beginning. That way it'll kind of give that appearance of the water, like the blue water being washed into the sand. You don't want to chase, okay, I'll show you how to clean that. You don't want to chase your cup in circles. So wait for it to come back around. The good part about this is, like I said before, if you mess up, just pull it out and reposition it. I drug a little right there, so I'll just play it off. I'll scoop some out and play it off. Okay, I'll show you how to fix this part. Just wiggle it through. If you don't like it, scrape it out. I'm gonna make this look a little more intentional. Take out that chunk of white. And I'm gonna make sure that it's mixed in all right here. I really like this way, complements off that blue, so when it comes back around, I'll put some more of it. I'm gonna drip it on my little silicone tool to help blend it so I don't have a big old blob. When you drip it like that, drip it off to the side. That way if it does fall, it's not falling directly on your cup. I'm gonna work that through. I don't want that piece of white, so we'll take that out, blue. And then I'm gonna give this a few edges. Make sure that's mixed up. I need to get some on that handle. We're gonna hit this all with the heat again. That way it'll even out a bit. Okay, and now I love this part. Now I have this white alcohol ink, and I'm gonna drop it on the edge of this flat silicone tool, and I'm gonna like have it drop on there and then stretch out what I drop. And I'm gonna do this somewhat in the bubbles. This really gives the effect of waves, like that kind of crash and then fan out. I'm dropping some close into the bubbles and some off. You see how that's setting right there? And for this, you really don't have to mess with it all that much. You see how it's washing up? It's so cool. You just drop a little and then extend it out. Like, not much work you have to do to this part. If you see where it ends or it has just one round dot, just take your silicone tool again and stretch it out. Like we have that, so we're gonna work it down and up. And I can tell by the way it's starting, the epoxy is starting to react with this ink, that it's going to be time to add a little more heat. So I'm going to take my torch this time. That way I can pop any bubbles that might be sitting in there, along with getting some of this ink to move. If you use too much heat right now, all of your inks are going to start sliding around your cup and you're going to kind of mess up everything that you did. So we don't want a ton of heat for this, just enough to kind of get some of those flowing and get those really deep crevices worked out. And this is where I say that I like using, oh no, didn't even, forgot that was on there for a minute. How did I do that? All right, we'll scoop that out and then we'll add more. Goodness. See, look, y'all get to learn from all of my mistakes. All right, we're gonna scrape that out and then we're gonna drop in a little more blue to finish that part off. I'll work some in right there too, because that was missing a piece. All right, so we're gonna work that blue. Make sure that didn't lay really harsh right there. And now is when I see if I see any parts that I don't like, I'll take the silicone tool and fix it up a little. I think I'm gonna add in a few more waves towards the top and bottom. I don't know, I'm gonna add a few more waves. We'll figure out where I decide to put them as it comes along. I think that's one of the things that makes me so nervous about tutorials, is that I know that I edit myself as I'm doing the design. If I see something that I feel like needs to change, I do it. And I guess I'm just scared. Like, I'm scared that it's gonna come off random. I don't know why I'm so worried about things like that. I mean, I guess it is somewhat a random design, but I don't know. I definitely have to get over myself. All right, we're gonna hit this with the torch one more time, just to make sure that I didn't whip any other bubbles into there, which I don't think I did. See a few on the back. And we're gonna let this spin. Let this go for a few hours. There's a straight line, and I don't like that. Okay. We're not gonna touch it anymore at this point, because if the epoxy is setting and if we go to pull it right now, it's going to come with me, and I don't need this to mess up because I actually love the way it came out. So we're gonna let this go for a bit, then we'll come back with another coat of epoxy. I don't wanna take it and sand it just yet because some of that color that I did do will come off when I'm sanding it. So I'll do another coat of epoxy to help fill in those grooves and catch any other rough pieces of glitter that may be poking from like the handle. And then we'll take it out and sand it. Ooh, another harsh spot. Get out of my cup. Okay. Okay, so that's it. Now I'm done touching it. Now that's it for this step. We'll be back with epoxy. Okay, so we're gonna clean up the bottom of this tumbler real quick. What I do is I have my cup edging tool from Wicked Shimmer on the lowest setting with my paring knife under there just to keep it in place. I take my cup and I just roll it around in a circle. You can hear when you've gotten all the way down because you'll hear the epoxy kind of click off a little, and then you'll hear the knife sliding against the metal. So you just spin that around a few times. Take your knife out and then just separate it. I may have to go one more time around, a little harder. This is definitely something you want to do after that first layer of epoxy, and I forgot. I was just kind of on a roll with the with this tutorial, and I completely forgot that I needed to trim that off. So you can see how easily that breaks apart, just peels off, and then I forgot acetone. Okay, and then just get your napkin. I usually use baby wipes, but they're in the dryer right now. I need to go pull those out of there. Baby wipes hold acetone longer than a napkin does, and it doesn't break apart that easily. So it's really, really good at helping to get paint off of tumblers and clean up a whole bunch of other messes. All right, so that's cleaned up. I'll show you this bottom part later. I popped this off. I put my sticker in there, and then I used the heat gun to press it in. And then I put UV resin over it to keep it in place. I'm not gonna show that right now because it is dark and the light that I have isn't the best. Where if I put it outside, it just cures in minutes, like so quick, just in minutes. So all right, I'm gonna get some epoxy mixed up and then we'll get it on there. All right, time for epoxy. Our next step is gonna be taking this out into the garage to sand it, and I definitely do not want to do that step when there's any rough pieces of glitter from the handle or anything sitting on there, because it for some glitters it will dull the glitters. Not quite sure how that works, so I have to find out as far as which glitters don't dull or get funky from it, because I know certain glitters like won't get rubbed off with the color, but I'm not sure what they are. So I'll have to find out, but just in case, we're going to give this a nice coat, make sure we get around the handle. We'll let it sit overnight because it's already late, and then we will take it and clean it up and get decals on it. All right, that's it for this step. Decal time for this really pretty beach tumbler. So the font that I'm using is Canyonland Script, and it's from Creative Market. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up the font so that it's like halfway on the waterline and halfway in the blue. The vinyl that I'm using is Cricut textured vinyl, and I'm not exact sure the color, but it's a light gold one. Now, this is something I definitely make sure that I tell people when they're buying this tumbler, is that I intentionally put this, I like this color vinyl. I intentionally use this color vinyl. The thing with it is that the way that it holds up against the gold, sometimes you can see it and sometimes you can't. And that's really, really the part that I love that just makes this design everything, is that when you turn it at certain angles, you know, angles, it will stand out really, really great. And then on some, like, it almost disappears. And I like how it kind of gives that illusion of being washed away by the water. Like the footprints in the sand is, you know, my thought when designing this. So I make sure I tell that to people. That way no one can come back and be like, well, the footprints were lighter than I thought and I don't like it. And I do have the option for them to have the darker vinyl if they wanted to do that. Now for the footprints, what I did is I cut this already, I weeded it, and I just put 2 slits, you know, slice the toes in sections. That way I have a little more control over where they go. I didn't want to just put it on a tumbler and have them line up weird. So now I have the choice of really positioning them to where they need to be. One of the biggest things I can tell you guys when you're doing this part is make sure you have all your toes. There's little pieces in here and sometimes they will just disappear, and it wouldn't be too great to finish it and realize that like 1 foot only has 3 of them. Unless that's how you want it, it's intentional, then have 3 toes. All right, I need that thing again. I do everything standing up, and now that I'm not, it's a little, will this work? That's cool. Never thought about that before. It's a little different working on this angle. So now I'm just going to position them kind of just 2 at a time. And like I said, having them off the tape like this, woo, it lets me mess with it a little more. There you go. Okay, give up with that. All right, roll it a little more. That worked for like a minute. And I was gonna grab my silicone mat that I have and kind of bend it over and use that. But yesterday I did some gold leaf and it is stuck all inside that mat. I mean, I have the prettiest mat ever now. Like, no one's gonna beat my silicone mat, but didn't think I wanted gold leaf stuck to this too. And then we're gonna scoot these this way and make sure they stay kind of within the lines of the water. One of the other really, really good things about using this textured vinyl is that if you, I sanded my tumbler. If you have some spots where it's kind of wavy from the waves that you did, like the texture of the tumbler is kind of bumpy, it will play it off. You won't be able to see that because it is a textured vinyl. It will hide that. Kind of allows you to get one more step in without having to sand it. Because I'm all about using just slightly less epoxy. I don't want them to be too bulky. And then we'll make sure all of these are in. And I am going to count my toes because I definitely want to make sure, right, we have 5, 5. The other thing is making sure they didn't like fall sideways or, you know, weird position. So we have 5, 5, 5, 5. Okay, that's it. That's all of this. You can kind of see how, hopefully you can see how I spray painted it just clear, hit it with clear just a little to show you guys, because it would be, they would really, really stand out if this was sanded. And like this, you can see a little better about how I'm saying about that it washes away. So if you wanted to use a different gold vinyl or mirror or a different color, I mean, definitely do with this. But I know, I love the way it just kind of fades away. So we're gonna get epoxy, and that's it. Like, that's pretty much it for this tumbler. Nothing else happens, just the layers of epoxy. Make sure we don't have any issues, seal the bottom. I don't do the bottom of my tumblers, like I said, but when I'm putting my epoxy on, I'll drape my hand over just a little to make sure the bottom seam right here is completely closed. Do the same on the top, and that's it. Time for epoxy on this beauty. Depending on how this takes, we may do 1 or 2 coats. I'm using Speed dry from Mr. Nola's glitter. Thin coats work really great with this. It is a thicker vinyl, so just make sure that, and you can tell if it's going to be a good coat because when you drop it on, if you slide it and you don't feel any of the vinyl, then you have a fairly good amount going on there. One of the things I'm careful of when I'm putting this epoxy on here for this step is making sure none of those toes shift around. Like I said before, they're tiny pieces, how some of those like to lift sometimes. So we're just going to really make sure that they stay in place. And we're not pressing too hard on them. Make sure everything has a really nice good coat. The top has it. I'm going to push it all toward the top. Make sure that little seal around there is back closed up, and then do the same and get some around the bottom. I don't trust myself to dump the cup over and pour onto here, so I just dip my finger in there and pull some out. All right, so if you can see right here, I'm kind of wiping my finger off and I'm going like this around the bottom. What I'm doing is I'm making sure that I shove some of that epoxy back up into that little crack so it will seal nicely. And make sure I get the bottom of my inside and on all of the other sides of my handle. For the name, I forgot to tell you guys, I know I said that I used that Canyonland script, but I did cut that at 4 inches wide, and the footprints are about 1 inch each, like 1 inch in height each. All right, I don't want to put any more epoxy on there to get inside this handle because I don't want it to have big goops of it. So I'm going to smooth this out. All of this will even itself around. Make sure it gets all through there. I'm going to let it roll for a bit and then I'll come back with my torch again just to double check for the bubbles. I usually don't have any issues with this epoxy. The bubbles really just escape on their own after just sitting there. The off-gassing is just amazing. So I'm going to let this sit and I'll come back and check it just in case. One of the things I also do, let me grab a baby wipe. I have just a dry baby wipe. I keep these and I put them in the dryer to get all the moisture out of it. I take my finger and I rub it around to get the extra stuff off the bottom. And this is how I clean the bottom of my tumblers after they're done. So I take that off the bottom. Let me do it with this hand. And then I take my baby wipe and I put a good bit of alcohol on it, and then I just clean it up a little more. I'm not touching over where it folds over. I wiped it so that they don't have any big drips, and then I'm just using the alcohol to go around and help clean that up. After that, if you torch it, you can get that epoxy to lay down. That way, if you have any spots that kind of went weird from you grabbing it, it won't stay like that. It'll have a smooth finish to it. And that's it. That is definitely it for this tumbler. If it needs another coat, I'll do that. No need to show you guys, it's pretty simple, but that's it. It's just a really pretty design. I love the way it gives it motion. And it also hides the fact that if your ombre game isn't flawless, which it really doesn't even need to be for this, you don't have to see it. You don't see, those big harsh lines. Everything's drawn on an angle, so your eyes automatically travel that way. So it's very, very forgiving and just a really pretty design. I love it. Hope you guys like this tutorial. Please like and subscribe. Let me know if you have any questions. Leave any advice in the comments. I love helping you guys, so that's really I'm happy what I love to do right now. So all right, hope you guys liked it. Okay, so I just put the epoxy on this and I realized that the bottom of the cup wasn't showing. I don't know why I didn't check that. So what I did, so you can see the bottom now, so sorry, is that I took my finger and I drug it along like this to clear off any epoxy, and then I took the alcohol on the wipe and I just went like this around the bottom to help clean it up. So Hope that part wasn't a waste, guys. That's all I did. I smushed it back into that line to help it go right there. But that's it.